Once you have an idea, for example, and you procrastinate on it, and you think this is a great idea, but you don't take the risk to actually try it or do something, then obviously it stays an idea, it doesn't manifest.
Hello and welcome to another Serious About Success podcast. I am today joined by a very special guest who goes by the name of Mada Dalian. Now, Mada, you are an award-winning author, as well as that you're a spiritual teacher, of which you are the founder of the Dalian method. Yeah. So, as a part of doing a bit of my research about you, I know you've got lots of courses, you do retreats, you coach and train people all around the whole world. Okay, so you're an international speaker with all of this type of stuff. So it's an absolute honor and a pleasure to have you on board with me this evening. You're all the way based in Canada, right? You're in North America?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Well,
British Columbia.
British Columbia, yeah. Okay, cool. Well, no doubt we'll get into some very interesting things as we go through this podcast. Okay. But I want to kick things off, Mada. I want to get into getting a bit more of an understanding as to who you are. But before we get into all of that, I want to get an idea just straight from the get-go. What is success? In your opinion, from your, the way that you view life, the way that you view the world, what is success?
Well, success to me is having lived life fully. Mm-hmm. Because when we live life fully, that's how we are internally satisfied. And no matter how much money a person has, if they have not lived their life fully, there's always something missing.
Okay.
So when you're able to live your life fully, obviously, then everything's possible.
Okay. So when you say live your life fully, yeah, what do you mean? What do you mean by that?
I mean, not be afraid, take risks, follow your calling. Like Joseph Campbell says, follow your bliss. In spite of what the conditionings are, in spite of what other people want you to do, in spite of what society thinks what's right or wrong, if you follow your own creativity, basically living life fully means living your creativity fully.
Yeah, I understand.
And through creativity is how you feel the internal joy, and therefore you want to do more. So the creativity never ends.
Okay. So do you feel that a lot of people struggle to really live fully, would you say?
Well, absolutely, because of all the repressions, all the conditionings, fears, primarily fears. Why a person would not take risks is obviously the fear of what could happen. And the mind always wants a result, always wants a guarantee. But in life, there is no guarantee. Life is basically there to live. And that's what I mean, live fully. Once you have an idea, for example, and you procrastinate on it, and you think this is a great idea, but you don't take the risk to actually try it or do something, then obviously it stays an idea, it doesn't manifest. Living life fully also means manifesting your energies in its fullest.
Okay, just wait one moment. I'm going to pull down this blind, okay? Because it's blinding me at the moment. The sun is shining through, and I thought it would be all right, but it's killing me. Okay, cool.
Especially in England, right? You want the sun, but at the same time.
This is it. Okay. So where does that fear come from then?
Well, the fear comes from the moment of birth. And life is a continuation. There's no beginning, no end to universe, which means there's no beginning or end to our being, our existence. So, which means also there's no beginning or end to the being itself. So we have many incarnations, but every incarnation, if we die in fear, we're born in fear. It's a continuation. For example, if you go to sleep with a certain thought, if you pay attention, you wake up with that thought, or a certain concern, or a certain excitement. So it all it is all a continuation. Nothing breaks. So fear is the moment we're born, because if you're in your mother's womb, obviously you feel comfortable, everything's taken care of, you don't need to do anything, and suddenly you're thrown out into the world. And every child feels it, because a mother is pushing out the child. So suddenly you're in this big world, and the fear arises right immediately. Like Buddha said, it's the first trauma that everybody experiences, and it's the biggest trauma.
Interesting. So, for example, a lot of the people that will be watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, people follow me because, my Serious About Success program, we help people to go on to transition from employment to entrepreneurship. However, one of the big things of what I come across, when teaching people, I teach a lot about psychology, and a lot of within the psychology, I can sense a lot of fear sometimes. It's a fear of change, a fear of, who they now didn't need to become. So would you say that this fear, could be generations deep? To say, for example, maybe generations, depending on their background, that might have passed through, and it's like a continuous cycle, even from previous generations, would you say?
Absolutely. Previous generations, previous lifetime patterns, and the generational imprints are very, very important to understand, because oftentimes people blame their parents. Oh, they didn't give me this, or this happened, or that happened. But the thing is, we need to understand, if we follow the law of attraction, you get attracted to parents who have similar patterns to yours, that you must see through the mirror of your parents so you can transform them. And the moment we blame, we're putting the focus on the outside instead of putting it on the inside, and then transformation is almost impossible.
Wow. Okay. So we're saying from the get-go, from the moment, because I've looked at some stuff like this before in the past. Obviously, my ethnic background is, my family are from the Caribbean. Obviously, we have a Black ethnic background, yeah? And obviously, that's going to be generations deep. And there has been struggles, obviously, within my culture, my ethnic background, there has been struggles over, centuries, when it comes down to achieving success or money or stuff like that. I was always told that that's not for people like us. So that's what I was told growing up. So could things like that be generational to, make it even harder for, say, for example, for somebody with different ethnic backgrounds or whatever it may well be, to make that change because they've got so much maybe baggage from, past life or previous generations, stuff like that? What do you think?
It definitely has an effect, and what you call generational, it's simple conditioning. And what we need to understand, the moment you understand that somebody wanted me to stay in this state, somebody wanted me to stay in the whole culture, to stay serving somebody else, because that's all it is, right? I am the master, you're the servant, and I want you to be a servant. So how do I make that happen? I need to manipulate you. I need to say that, you know what, this is your calling. You're supposed to be, this is how life is for you. And obviously the status quo, it's very tricky. So if you don't have financial success, I'm your lifeline. So I'm employing you, you should be grateful to me. And you don't have anything yourself that you can contribute because I'm not going to allow you. Okay. That's exactly what's happened through generations.
Okay.
And so if you take, for example, a country like Africa, there's so many resources in Africa, and look at, so the whole colonialism. So we take your resources, which can make you richer, which can make you successful. But because we know how to manipulate better, we can do that, take your resources, and you continually serve us. And that whole thing with, you're in England, they had 200 colonies. Yeah. France had many colonies, and this is the, if we look at geopolitical situation, this is exactly what's happening. It's the fight, and why there's two camps that developing now because people, especially in Africa, saying enough is enough. We want to employ our own or exploit our own resources. It's our land. So once you start seeing that actually I've been under almost like a hypnosis, then obviously you can make a change, because change happens with consciousness. Nothing can happen without consciousness.
Okay. So let's just say, for example, that, people that may be listening to this are from birth, for example, have been conditioned in a certain way. And that is, from even prior, previous generations, we've been conditioned in a certain way. And now in this year, in this generation, in this modern day, we want to now break the cycle, change.
Mm-hmm.
You would say that consciousness is the key to breaking that cycle.
Absolutely. Consciousness understands I've been under hypnosis, I've been conditioned.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned Africa, but it's the same thing in the white population in the West.
Mm-hmm.
People are born, they go to work 9 to 5, they don't know that I'm actually capable of doing something else, because that's what I know, that's what my parents have done, and that's what the generations have done. But the thing is, the moment you realize, first of all, I have to say, our whole education system is not an education system. The whole education system is missing something very fundamental, and this is also very politically important to understand. Why we're conditioning children to compare themselves to others and to follow what you're told. That's a conditioning. So then if you start instilling fear in the child from early on, saying that you're not good enough, basically. This other child, Johnny's better because he's getting better marks. Well, you know what? One person is good at one thing, the other person is good at something else. But we don't teach that to children. We don't teach that you have your own unique gifts and your responsibility is to discover and live them. Because if each person discovers their own gifts, they don't need to compare. I'm so happy to have what I've got. Why do I need to compare? Comparison leaks energy. Thinking I'm not good enough leaks energy. All these conditionings, all these beliefs leak energy, which means consciousness is missing. Consciousness of self.
Okay. So would you say then that continues? So when we now get into our adult life and we now want to achieve whatever aspect of success, that could be, financial success, but it could be other aspects. It could be relationships. It could be anything, but now that we want to step into that we want to step into that level of success, we've got these challenges. We find it very difficult because even from birth, but as well as that, the educational system, everything is kind of set up to make it so much harder for us to really succeed. Would you say that?
Absolutely. But one thing to understand is that everybody has infinite power. So normally, in a human way, people who are strong, they follow their own calling, they know what they're doing, they don't need other people's opinions. These people are often not liked. Why so? Because the majority of people haven't found their own strength and power. Now, how to find your strength and power? This is the main important question, because the conditionings happen through the mind. So therefore, you cannot undo the conditioning created by the mind with the mind. This is exactly what Einstein said. You cannot make the change with the mind that created the problem in the first place. You cannot use the mind because the mind works in a linear way. It's good and bad, right or wrong. But consciousness is the part inside you that I call the inner knower, knows what I need to do. And that's connected with your intuition. And oftentimes people intuitively feel something, the mind comes in and they follow the mind instead of following their intuition. But how to get in touch with your intuition, this is why I developed the system. The method is that it accesses those conditionings, the beliefs that are in the body, and allows the person to express them, release them, and come to connect to their inner consciousness, which knows the right answer to anything. And it becomes, everything becomes so much simpler, because in that process, you're also working with your fears. And that's the hardest thing for people. So that's why people stay in the mind trying to process it. And many times people have worked a lot through psychology, counseling, etc. When I work with them and things come up because they're in the body, they go, but I thought I worked with it. Well, you may think you worked with it, but all the repressed beliefs we're holding it in our body, not just in the head. You see? And the body is like a bottom of the iceberg. All our history is in our body and in our energy, and not just this lifetime history. So with the system, things come up on their own without you thinking. We bypass the mind, and we work with the body, the mind, the emotions, the spirit, the soul, and consciousness all at the same time.
Okay.
So, and we must, right? We must.
I completely understand. Yeah. No, I get it completely. So, for example, I was speaking to somebody very recently, and she has, she's got some, very low self-confidence. We want to go on to create a big business, a 6 or 7 figure business. This is the plan. However, sometimes when I've had conversations with her, when I've said that, look, look what you have achieved, look what you've achieved here, look what you've achieved there, look what you've achieved there, she finds it very, very, very difficult to really believe any of that. Even though I'm sitting here saying that you've done really well, so that conditioning is so deep, like deep within, like you've mentioned, like in the mind, but not just the mind, it's within every element of your beingness. That even though I'm saying, look, you're fantastic and you've done really well, look what you've done really well over here. And do you know what? She just couldn't believe it. She just won't believe it. She won't believe. So obviously I'm tasked with now trying to help her create a successful business. And I'm just like, wow, this is quite a tough gig. So you're saying that, to really go deep within and access that consciousness, how do you do that then, Mada? How would somebody like that do that?
Well, basically, that's exactly what I'm saying. There is a belief which does not believe, right? There's a belief in the body. So the person knows what that belief is. No, I can't do that. So somewhere, because I grew up believing I can't do that. So no matter how much you tell me how great I am, and even I get excited with my own ideas sometimes, but something it doesn't let me move forward. And so that's exactly, you cannot do it with the mind, Jay. That's what I'm saying. That's why I created the system. So for example, when we look at the body, and obviously there's the yin yang energies in the body as well, the male female energies, left right, because we all come from mother father. So everything in existence that moves because there is polarity. Every movement is there because plus and minus. Without the plus and minus, movement cannot happen. Then we're in the center. When we're meditating and we come to the stillness, there's no movement. So consciousness is in the no movement place. But in life, we have to manifest. We're moving. We're living. Life is happening. Planets are moving. So without movement, what never moves is the space. The empty space never moves. It's empty. So people are afraid of emptiness, whereas that's exactly where their power and consciousness is. So the center of the universe is also your center, because in the center of the universe, nothing moves. everything moves around. There's a symbol for consciousness, and that is a circle with a dot in the middle. The dot in the middle never moves. Everything that moves is around. But then in the process of how to transform, we need to start developing our ability to witness. Because identification with any thought is what creates the ego. And ego is very limited power. When something comes from within you, it just comes, an idea comes out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
So suddenly you have this idea, I could do this. Well, where did that come from? It didn't come from your thinking. It came from that space, that empty space. Suddenly that idea arose. Okay, I could do this. And then you're connecting to your inner power, to your inner creativity. Because we say God is the creator. Well, we are the creator. We're creating all the time. So that means I am God. If I really, and this is an experience that must be had. The mind can understand up to a point. But then once you have the experience, you know that I cannot doubt it anymore because I've experienced it. And mind can be easily conditioned because if it's not an experience, you can be easily conditioned. If you have an experience, you can say, "Oh, that's all. That's all untrue. I know what I'm doing. What I'm. Nobody can condition. Nobody can tell me what to do. I'm my own master." But that comes also, again, through the process. This is the power of this system, that it does not. First of all, it does not. Why did I create a self-help version of it? So that you can take the power back into your own hands. But the problem is with the human condition, we're so conditioned for somebody else to do it for me. Mom, you do it. Dad, you do it. That expectation is still there in every adult. The child is still there. We need to transform the child. So the child understands my life is my responsibility. Nobody's going to do it for me. And nobody should do it for me because everybody has their own life to live. And you talk about relationships. Why relationships always have, they're challenging, but at the same time, they have great opportunity for learning and transformation. So, but the expectation in the relationship is whatever unlived inner child I expect from my partner. Well, my partner has their own life to live. Nobody owes me anything. We need to come to see that. And the only way to take your life back into your own hands is to become your own master. Understand, nobody owes me anything. It's my life, so I'm the creator. And then there's no limitations. Then you live your life fully, you see.
So do you think that, with some of the things of what we're talking about here, I mean, look, I'm loving what it is that you're saying, and I'm following everything that you're saying. Do you think that everybody has got the ability from a consciousness point of view to really now start developing an understanding of exactly what it is that we're talking about? So say, for example... Absolutely. It's inbuilt. It's part of your being. You are the universe. You're not separate. How do we switch that on? I'm thinking about the normal person that is not necessarily on a quest of spiritual enlightenment as such. However, they want to change their life. However, they keep on trying to change their life and they keep on reverting backwards. I've had a bit of therapy here, a bit of therapy there, read a few books, but we still seem to be stuck in the same situation. For somebody like that, who is not necessarily on a spiritual quest, how do they switch it on?
Okay, so this is one of the biggest challenges when people ask me that question. And my answer is simple: do my method. Work with my method. Because I cannot give you a mental answer that's going to solve that problem or that answer that question. Impossible. It is just think the mind cannot solve it. The only way to solve it is, how is the mind going to access what's in the unconscious in the body? It's not possible.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying the podcast. Don't worry, we've got lots more content left to come. This is just a quick word from me. Now, you were here I speak a lot about things like mentorship, as well as that, surrounding yourself with the right people. Now, one of the other things, if you really want to achieve the financial success, what makes it helpful is to have things like accountability. This can be the difference between you making it and you really not really quite getting there. Now, if you're at the start of your journey, you want to maybe leave your 9-to-5 day job, or you're just in the process of starting up a business, I would like you to come and check out our website, www.seriousaboutssuccess.com. Over the years, we have coached thousands of people all around the world. We speak on BBC Radio as their go-to guy for anything related to mentorship. It's very important for you to have that helping hand along the way. So come and check out our website, sign up for our free training, and we'll show you exactly what it takes for you to succeed. Now back to the podcast.
Because the mind created what's in the unconscious in the body. So that's why, and when I say, and therapy is also using the mind. This is the problem. So that's why the system bypasses the mind. It's such a different. So people work with it, just an example, right? So people work with it, the shift happens, whatever the belief is there shifts in the body, new awareness comes in, and the mind jumps back right after and goes, can I keep this? Can I keep this awareness that I just had? And for that reason, after the session, I say, you have to create action steps for yourself. Action step means you have to do what you're always afraid to do. But then you have some understanding now, consciousness has come in, that it's my life and I'm responsible, or it's my life and I don't need to follow this old belief that I had. But you see it, you don't think it, you see it from within. That's what I call consciousness. So then once you see it, action step is, if you're afraid to tell people how you feel, you have to take action to tell them how you feel. Because what's the fear? If I tell people how I feel, they're going to reject me. I'm afraid to be rejected. That's a big one for people. If I show what I think and feel, they're going to reject me, they're going to judge me. That's a huge one. So that's why people are afraid, fear to make mistakes. Such a huge one. So those things are there, and how to break those fears? Well, you have to take a risk. You say, okay, if my experience when I had every big shift that I've made in my life, I always had this thought, if existence needs me here, it will have to take care. So I take the risk. I leave my job, which I've done. So I'm talking from experience. So I leave the job if existence needs me, but then I rely on my own creativity and my power. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't say today is a good day to die. So when I said, and I saw the ego, and I saw the fear of the ego, because it's the ego that is afraid to die. We cannot die. So then when you're doing meditation, you're doing introspection, and you do this inner work, you work with your fears, and then you start seeing the ego's fear to die, and you go, I'm identified with all these fears. But that's the ego. It's not letting me. It does not want me to die, so it finds another tricky way to keep me in itself, because the function of the ego is what? To help the body survive.
So what do you mean by the ego? So I understand where you're coming from, but for anyone that is not following or not really grasping what you're saying about ego, what do you mean by ego?
Well, ego is the shell that needs to protect itself. And to a degree, when a person feels, I've been giving myself away, but something, and then comes the point where you feel, no, now I have to take care of myself. That's the transition between the wounded ego and the healthy ego. And I talked about it in the first book, In Search of Miraculous Healing into Consciousness, because ego and consciousness must develop hand in hand in order for consciousness to come and see, oh, that's the ego. And I could say, today's a good day to die. I'm going to jump because I know I cannot die. So I cannot take a risk if I'm always afraid. But the fear is connected with, there's two kinds of fear: the psychological fear and the fear that's inbuilt in the body. When there's fire, or where you're in a situation when you know, and this is what happens, which is a funny kind of situation. A tsunami is there, the wave is coming, and you're taking pictures. You're not connected to that inner, the body's run, right? So no, taking pictures or taking selfies is more important. Well, you're going to sink under it. You see? So taking selfies, that's a selfie generation that we're living in right now, right? So, and then they go to these dangerous places, and a lot of them fall and die just because to take a selfie. Because what? Something's missing, and the consciousness is not there. So, you know what? Let's be like, why am I doing this? The question why people don't ask. This is the thing. In my teaching, I always tell people, okay, why is this there? You're feeling this way. Why is this there? And then here's the system. Work with it. I even have a 17-minute called Find Answers to Your Questions. But you need to have a question, and you need to have that inner desire to have the answer. Okay, why am I afraid to make mistakes? Instead of saying, I'm afraid. Well, okay, why are you afraid? Just shifting the focus. The focus is very important, because wherever we put the focus, that's where our energy goes. And we have limited amount of energy in the physical world.
Okay, yeah. So tell us then, Mada, obviously you've coached thousands of people around the world over X amount of years, your Dalian method, and, and obviously, you've helped people really transform their life. Tell us a little bit about your story then. Like, how did you develop and get to this point of where, you're where you are now, having this conversation with me, having a level of understanding and wisdom about, how things really work. Where did all this come from? So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think it's important to understand I was born in the Soviet Union, right? So Soviet Armenia at the time. And one very great benefit in that conditioning, even though it was post-Stalin era. Post-Stalin, which means during the Stalin era, everybody was so, afraid to speak, to say something, but people learned to think. And obviously, survival instinct is very strong. So if you take that whole area, Russia, Soviet countries, survival instinct. Why? Because there's been a lot of wars. They've been attacked many times. So now they know how to take care of themselves. So, okay, when the survival instinct is strong, you have to think, which means that helps to develop your thought of how I'm going to survive. So Gurdjieff is one of the teachers. I don't know if you know. He was basically in the time during the war. He was also there. Uspensky's book, In Search of Miraculous, Uspensky actually spoke about Gurdjieff's teachings. And unfortunately, Gurdjieff's life was different, obviously, for one reason, because, again, he spoke, I think, 26 languages. So then whenever there's people are invading, people are attacking, people want what you want, so you have to figure out a way to survive. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that background is there. And I'm born in that country post-Stalin era. And in that time when I was born, there was a very strong understanding that it's my life and nobody could dictate me how I'm supposed to live it. Even though we know Iron Curtain and nobody's allowed to, to leave from behind the Iron Curtain and da. Yeah, of course, there was a lot of also not so great things. All right, so it just happened. And my story is that my parents were divorced when I was 7. And from the very beginning, I knew that basically, I'm in charge of my own life. It's just past life also, whatever I've done, a lot of things I've done in my life. So growing up, first of all, I had a very important influence in my life, my grandmother, whom when I was a child, 5 years old, I told her, there is no God. Where is God? If there is God, show him to me. I want proof. And I was running around, and so she caught me and she said, God is inside you. God is inside every human being. God is everywhere in anything that you see. So I thought, you know what, she's right. So I left her alone. So that influence was very important. My second influence in childhood was very important when my grandfather died, a maternal grandfather, and he died of cancer. And I watched him die. And I realized that one day I will be dying as well. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to die as well, and he's dead now, life is continuing. Life is going to continue after I'm also dead. So then who am I? Where am I coming from? What am I doing here? Where am I going to go when I die? Those questions were the most important in my mind. And so after that, it just happened that I got married, I had a child, and my husband was a student, a foreign student. We were both studying architecture. So once he finished his education, we moved to the West, to Canada. A complete culture shock.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So, but in that equation, I met this Russian woman who gave me a book by Osho, Indian mystic Osho. Mm-hmm. And when I read the book, first she gave me Uspensky's book about Gurdjieff, and then she gave me the book by Osho. And it was like, I reconnected with this. This is great. So finally, I'm going to get my answers. But then I thought I'm getting it mentally reading. So it was completely wrong. So then I started meditating. I went to India, lived there for 4 years in Osho's community, meditating.
Oh, wow.
So, but then I realized that the most important thing is, obviously, if I want to know who I am, the focus is who I am. That was my whole focus. And then I realized that part of the ego that I talked to you about, the ego is the ego that is afraid to die. And then I thought, well, okay, I'm going to take a risk. Today is a good day to die. I took the risk, and that's where I had the experience where suddenly you see everything just disappears inside. What happens is this just explosion of light. It's almost like thousands of suns suddenly explode inside. And then you see that you're just the emptiness of it. There's no ego. So after that experience, the whole perspective changed. And I realized that basically, once we're in that consciousness that knows I cannot die, then, and you understand the ego, but I couldn't have done it mentally. This is the thing. It's an experience you have to have after, meditating, watching your breath, navel gazing, and Osho's active meditations, which are just super duper. It's so powerful. So then after he left his body, I came back to the West. I came back to Canada. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do now. And I was 34, 35 years old. But I have to survive, right? You need money to survive. What am I going to do now? Okay, I did the meditation. I'm relaxed inside, but nevertheless, I have to pay rent. I have to, eat. I have to take care of myself. What am I going to do? So at that point, I thought, I have a deep understanding of human condition. So I was looking at the ads in the paper, and then I saw this ad for social worker in child protection services in Ontario. So I just sent my resume. I had no background in social services. I had no. My credentials are architecture is what I studied, right?
Yeah.
so the guy came. They went to 5 cities in Canada, and he was interviewing loads of people. So he came to Montreal, where I was at the time, and he showed me this pile of applications. They had gathered 570 applications. They had 2 positions. And so I'm talking to him, and it's like, I don't have background in social services, but ask me anything. So he kept asking me questions, and then he said, I look at all these applications with people who have the education for it, but he says there's no ability to understand anything in life, like the human condition, the human psychology. So then they called me to Ontario. Maybe another 5 people interviewed me, and I was chosen out of the people. 1 person was me. I worked in social services for 3 years. Oh my God, that was such an eye-opener.
Yeah.
Because I saw that the human dysfunction and why people stay in that dysfunction. They have little kids, but so the social check comes in, they run to the bar. The child is there at home with no food. So that was really difficult. I was so exhausted after 3 years.
So why do you think they do that? Just to quickly jump in there, why are people? I mean, because I know exactly what you're saying. Why do people sabotage themselves in that way?
Because they don't want to change. There's a huge blame of parents. It's the blame. And interestingly, they put me in to work with teenagers. In the beginning, for 2 years, I worked with teen conflicts. And in the social services, if it's a young child you apprehend, you take it to a foster home. With teenagers, they tell you, we're not apprehending. We have no room in social services. You have to deal with parents and teens and try to figure out the conflict. And it's always the blame. The parent blames, the child learns to blame because they see a parent who's blaming. The relationships with their parents are all based on blame. So then these teenagers come into this state of feeling that, now I have the power. I don't have to listen to everything they say and do everything they say. But then what do? A girl is 15 years old, gets pregnant thinking somebody else is going to love me because my parents didn't love me. So the whole dysfunction stays a dysfunction. It's just the beliefs. Everything's based on beliefs. Right. So then after 1 year, they put me to work with young children, sexual abuse, apprehension, etc. And then I started seeing that the social services is very limited in the way they can't help people. They're not helping people. They're just following a protocol. And when I started bringing this up, then the management was like, you're telling us what to do. Well, yeah, because what I see you're doing is not working. So at that point, I felt like I've had enough. I was so tired. Like, you just completely, people come, I talk to them, you do consultation, they feel suddenly better for temporarily because the old patterns are going to come in. They leave your office and you feel drained. So then I decided I've had enough. So, and I went to India at that point. I thought I need a little break because India is such a different country to what we're used to. There's more. And I went back to the Osho community, just felt like, at least you have some energy that you could get back, do some meditation. And at that point, I decided I'm going to take this course about it was called Star Sapphire, just working with energies. And when I did the course, I came back to realize about the ability that I had as a child. I was able to read thought forms in people's energies because we're working with energies at that point, right? With the person's body. And then as I was holding a person's, we started with holding the feet, looking at what sort of images you get. That was the training. And the person's unconscious was talking to me. It was like I was hearing everything that was in the unconscious. I was like, ooh, I gotta stop here. I can't even remember everything I'm hearing here, right? Mm-hmm. So then I told the person that I was working with, this is what's happening, this is what I'm hearing. And then tears came to his eyes, everything, he became emotional because that was exactly what was hidden in his body, you see, repressed. So then I worked with other people, the same thing was happening. And then I thought I need to explore this more because I saw that this training of this course was also limited. And then I came back to Montreal. Then I decided, Ontario at that time, I quit my work. I went to BC and I thought I'm going to explore this human condition. What is happening? And there must be a way to find how to access the consciousness and release these unconscious patterns that I'm hearing in the body. So then after working with few people, I thought, I'm going to ask them to verbalize what I'm hearing, because just by telling them wasn't really helping. It was helping a little bit, things would come up, but then I don't see transformation. All I see is emotions coming up, right? So then when I asked them to verbalize out loud, and I started working with the whole body, seeing what kind of thoughts are repressed in different parts of the body. And there were so many contradictory thoughts and emotions, because thoughts and emotions are very closely connected. You use a thought and suddenly emotion. If you use the thought that's repressed, the emotion would immediately come. So then when I asked them to verbalize what I was hearing, that's exactly what was happening. And then as I went through different chakras, different energy points, different parts of the body, I realized that the whole body needs to be worked with what's repressed. It's almost like detoxifying the body from the thoughts and emotions that are in the body. Mm-hmm. And once, it's like clouds, once you release them, you allow them to be lived. Then consciousness is like a sun. It's inside each person. It's just impossible not to have consciousness within the energy of the being, right? So then that consciousness is innate, and it knows everything. It knows the truth. Everybody, so they say truth is one, right? You've heard that.
Yeah.
So when a person connects to their inner truth, and another person connects to their inner truth, and then they're all saying the same thing, because truth is one. So then as I started working, and people were coming, and some therapists started coming, and they were so excited. They wanted to learn how to work with the system, because I could see after a while, it's a system. If I do this and this and this and this, and then go back and forth through the body, that's another thing I had to do. Then everybody's coming to their inner consciousness. That's the light comes on.
Okay. So
And
how did you get out there then? How did you get so many people to? How did it become so visible?
okay, well, that's a gradual process. Right? First, because I always like to ask questions, I have a very scientific mind. Initially, I wanted to actually study cybernetics. It's more like a mental mathematics was always my interest, mathematics and physics in school. So I always like to ask questions. Why? Just like from beginning, who am I? Right.
Yeah.
So then why is this happening? Why is this not happening? Why is this happening? So then that's how, then I saw if I do this with each person, the same outcome I'm coming to. So consciousness is coming through. If I do these steps and I work through the body in this way. And that's how I saw this is a system. And then people started asking me to train them. And I'm going like, how am I going to train someone to know what I'm doing? Because I can say that, okay, the steps, but then how can I train someone to read somebody else's thought forms if they're not even aware of their own thoughts and their own ego? Then they're going to project their own ideas onto person, what's right and wrong. And I can't take that responsibility because Will make a mess.
Yeah.
You know, you can have like something like awesome, but then if you do it, it will be more destructive. So then I thought, I'm going to try and create a self-help version of this system. So each person can, whatever's coming up, they work with it. Nobody's projecting their thoughts on them. So I created that self-help system. Took me a while. And then I thought I'm going to experiment with it. So I did an experiment with the GDV equipment. It's an equipment that based on Kirlian photography. So we did an experiment with people just who has never done it before, do the self-help version. So before they started, we took a Kirlian photography through their fingerprints. And then that's a system developed by Russian scientists, by the way, and they're using in Russian hospitals that they were using it. So then, and then we took after, and it was like, I was shocked to see the difference, even like visually, because I know it happens, the shift happens, but to see it visually, it's in my book, actually, some of those visuals.
Yeah.
So that was then, I'm satisfied. For me, I needed to be satisfied. That's why I did that. Because I don't like to put out anything that is, I'm not 100% bulletproof, satisfied myself.
Yeah.
So then people started using it. And then I felt that, the human condition again came in. It's like people are by nature lazy. They don't like to put in time for their own development because life is so busy and they go, I don't have time. And you have time to suffer, but you don't have time to put in an hour and a half for your own transformation. And then I thought, okay, now I'm going to have to train people to work with other people using the recording of the system, because they can't just watch what's happening, give some, encouragement or guidance, and then know what the steps are. So the facilitators now, I trained many facilitators who, so they would facilitate a session with a recording going at the same time, because the recording is telling you the steps that you have to go through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And facilitators have been working with that system on their own for many years before I could take them to even, become facilitators, because they need to understand what's going on inside them.
Okay. So you've had quite the journey, yeah, to get to this point of where we're at now. I mean, look, you mentioned that when you was doing some of the social work, in that at that time, you mentioned about obviously people going to the bar and stuff like that when they should be looking after the kids. Tell me something. Why has humanity kind of lost its way? Because what I'm saying there is you've got so much negativity out in this world, right? There's so much. It's so much easier to just to cut you down and to bring you down and bring people down and complain and complain and complain and moan and moan and moan. And that is, the state of the world of, the vast majority of people in the world. Why has humanity lost its way in the way that it has?
Because the whole education system is wrong. As simple as that. If you start teaching a child early on to understand their ego, which is the ego always wants to, if we take the immature ego, it always wants its way. That's called self-righteous ego. So then the self-righteous ego starts fighting with the wounded ego. Yeah, because different people have a different constitution of that ego. One is self-righteous. No, I know everything. It's got to be my way or highway. It's very Western approach. And some people have been conditioned to serve. And so I'm not good enough. That's the wounded ego.
So would you then say that they then project that outwards, because obviously they're wounded, so hurt people then typically hurt people, right?
Well, that's exactly. But you have to understand, it's all energy, right? And religions have a big role to play in it.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying the podcast. Don't worry, we've got lots more content left to come. This is just a quick word from me. Now, you will hear us speak a lot about things like mentorship, as well as that, surrounding yourself with the right people. Now, one of the other things, if you really want to achieve the financial success, what makes it helpful is to have things like accountability. This can be the difference between you making it and you really not really quite getting there. Now, if you're at the start of your journey, you want to maybe leave your 9-to-5 day job, or you're just in the process of starting up a business, I would like you to come and check out our website, www.seriousaboutssuccess.com. Over the years, we have coached thousands of people all around the world. We speak on BBC Radio as their go-to guy for anything related to mentorship. It's very important for you to have that helping hand along the way. So come and check out our website, sign up for our free training, and we'll show you exactly what it takes for you to succeed. Now back to the podcast.
What do you mean?
Big role to play in it, in a way that why suddenly sex becomes a sin? It's a way of controlling. If God gave you your body, God created, we say, you didn't create the body that I have. If God gave me that sexuality, and it's not just for procreation, it's also to experience joy. So if I experience joy, I'll know that there's something more to life. But no, if it's taken away from me and I cannot experience that joy, then I'm going to stay in suffering, believing life is miserable, and that's what I'm going to project. Then I could be a good worker.
Okay. So we're looking at education, we're looking at religion, that potentially are suppressing mankind in a certain way so that we're not really fulfilling our true power, if you like. What else? What about society on a whole?
Well, society is based on religion and education. Because if you take those two things, and of course the political powers is, so you give power to someone and you don't know if this person is going to actually do me good or the people good, or is they're going to do themselves good. And now you could see people get elected and people elect them, but then people don't deliver what they promised to people to deliver. And that's the big mess politically. And geopolitical situation very, very vividly shows the human condition.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So tell me then, Mada, if somebody's watching this and they're just thinking, look, okay, I get it. I get our ego gets in the way. I get the conditioning from childhood, education. I want to attract, success. I want to attract money into my life. I want to attract, good fortune. How do we do that?
Okay, number one, ask the question, why? What's missing? Why do I want the good fortune? Why do I want to attract? What's missing that I want
Let's
this?
say I can't pay the bills. The bills, are mounting up. I've got people saying that they're gonna take my house away. I want freedom as well for my life. I just want it all.
Yeah, okay. Well, if that's the reason, then you're not going to be able to have the power, and you're not going to access your creativity, which is going to create your wealth. Because then it's almost like your cup is empty. You want to fill it, but it's just empty. You say, my cup is empty, I want to fill it. Okay, well, how am I going to fill it? But why? Okay, I need to pay my bills, but where is my creativity? How am I going to do that? I have to take responsibility. Every successful person is a kind of a person, if you really look, is taking responsibility for their own creativity, for their own, how I'm going to do it, what I'm going to do. So there is a self-confidence there, in other words. If I don't have the self-confidence, then I need to work to see, why am I not feeling confident in myself? That's all I'm saying. If you start working with the why and transform, why am I thinking I can't do it? Or why am I thinking something is holding me? Something is not letting me take a risk. Well, work with that something, and then you can take the risk. It's basically eliminating the barriers that are stopping your energy from moving, because each person has their own creativity, they have their own ideas, they have ability to uniquely give something to benefit others. And you have to always have that in mind. Okay, I want to be successful, but I want to benefit from what I'm going to gain. Because if it's just for me, it's a failure. It's just a formula of failure.
Okay, yeah, I understand. So it's about filling up our own cup by finding our own message, our own calling, if you like, yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, right, I get it. But Mada, you've been absolutely fantastic. I very much, appreciate your time that you spent with us. This hour had literally flown by. I just looked at the clock and I was just conscious. I was thinking, geez, an hour's gone by so quick. But there's so much more that I wanted to dive into. But it's been great, kind of seeing your insight in terms of just from your conscious awareness, from your perspective. I think that it's really, really, really important. Would you say that money is an energy, and once you get into the right type of, like what you just said, once your cup is full, you're working with something that intuitively maybe you might connect very well with, at that stage, would you say that, you might then start energetically attracting, good fortune towards you? What would you say in relation to that?
Money is definitely energy, but what I would say that if you follow what brings you joy, do what brings you joy, then automatically that joy is connected to creativity, right? Creativity brings joy. So if you're doing something and it brings you joy, keep doing that. That's the formula of you then having the success, because it's all energy.
Yeah, I understand.
Right? And joy is, just imagine of joy. So like you're looking at fireworks, right? Suddenly there's a boom, firework. And it's like, that expansiveness that happens. Because if there's beliefs in the body that I can't do it, I'm afraid. So what happens to the energy? It shrinks. But when there's self-confidence and there's joy comes out of creativity, and you don't even think that I'm going to gain something, but I just enjoy doing this and take the risk to do it, then automatically you're already expanding your energy. And when the energy expands, if money is part of that energy flow, which is, because without money, no flow happens in the world. So then, okay, how can I bring this, what I'm feeling, the joy of what I'm creating or what I want to do? Because everybody knows this, if I do this, I'll feel good. So then do it, and don't even worry about, I'm going to do it so I could get money. Don't even worry about that. Because if you do it, the money would flow. I never did what I did because I'm going to get money out of it. Mm-hmm. This is the thing. So I spent 7 years on my first book because I wanted to create something that's going to benefit people. And I wanted to really make sure that this, it's like I create a map for people. It's easy to understand their own journey. Yeah. And I spent another 7 years on actually putting the system, the book and the recording out, and that whole process, it's called labor of love. But then existence supports you when what you do is unconditional.
Interesting, because another question I'm going to quickly ask you about that is, you used to work in employment. And as I mentioned to you at the very, very beginning, one of the things of what I do is I help people transition from employment to entrepreneurship. So you went from employment to entrepreneurship. How did you find that transition? Because employee is a completely different world. Obviously, you being an entrepreneur, having your own business and stuff like that, you've got to wear lots of different hats, from selling to, maybe marketing to, then delivering the service, then, lots of different things that go on as a business owner. How did you find that transition?
Well, when you find something that interests you, that I want to pursue this, which I found, which I wanted to create. The second thing that, like I said, existence supports. So what happened when I moved to BC, there was this program, Create Your Own Business. It was government program. And I thought, I'm going to apply to that because I have no clue about business. I don't know how I'm going to manifest these things, like whatever. So when I applied, I learned a lot about making a business plan, about the steps you need to take. So then I thought, okay, now I have this gift I want to develop. And then this is how I need this. These are the tools that I can use to help me manifest it. So definitely, learning how to make a business plan, those things, practical things we must do. It's not just, I dream the idea and things are happening without me putting any effort into it.
Yeah, that's it. Well, that's one of the big things of what I coach when I train people is like, we might see these things out there online sometimes. It's like, oh, all you've got to do is spend half an hour a day and you'll now start making all of this money and all this type of stuff. And I'm like, well, look, that's not real. And, when I say that's not real, look at everything we've been talking about today, from the conditioning, from what you're born into, and how some of that conditioning can be holding you back because there might be self-confidence issues and stuff like that has gone all the way back through to maybe even, generations above, and stuff like that. And then we go through that whole process. So it's so much more than just, all I've got to do is just this. So, I take people through that journey. Yeah.
And that's exactly why I agreed. I'm happy to do this interview with you because I could see that you have that aspect.
Yeah.
And without that aspect, it's just because you're a human being. Without bringing that human aspect and exploring yourself, and success means you have to work inside yourself, and at the same time, as you transform your energy, the outside transforms as well. So that's why I love what you're talking about, what you're saying, how you teach, because without that, it's impossible.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. So cool. Mada, any other words of wisdom that you want to share with us? Any other final last little points in terms of, look, I'll tell you what I'm going to ask you. Where can people find you, Mada? Like, we've spoken about the Mada, the Dalian method a bit on the podcast. So where can people find more about the Dalian method and what you're all about?
Well, madadalian.com is my website. And that there's a lot of information. Actually, sometimes people say too much information on my website. So there's a lot of information about the method. There's some pictures. The books are there. So yeah, madadalian.com, MADA.
You run retreat. You've got lots of courses, but you run retreats and stuff, right?
Yes. At the moment, I'm just doing the online courses.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, look, yes, I mean, look, feel free to check out madadalian.com. And no doubt there's lots of information to keep, people there busy and very intrigued in what it is that you're all about. So look, I've absolutely loved doing this interview with you, Mada. Like, as I mentioned at the beginning, I was very excited about doing this because look, I interview a lot of successful people. So the majority of people that come on my platform, they are, multi-millionaires. Everyone started at zero. But a lot of the time it's the practical, logical aspect, and there is a side of what happens that people don't always realize, and that is that their consciousness, how they've been able to get through, elements of the barriers that that has sort of formed as a part of their consciousness, but they've been able to work through that quite well based on their desire, their determination, their hard work. So they don't always see it. They don't always see it. Yeah. Do you get what I mean? It's just like, I've just made this money. They don't see what they've had to break through, So, having somebody like yourself on to kind of really shine the light on, well, hang on a minute. Yes, we can go on and achieve success, but guess what's really going on, with your psychology and, your spirit and everything that's going on within you. So it's very, very, very refreshing to see that sort of side of things as well,
You're very right, because a lot of successful people, they don't even know how to communicate what's happening inside them to achieve that success financially.
Yeah, that's it. So brilliant. Mada,
that's great.
That is excellent. Look, thank you so much for your time. Look, we've gone over the time that I said we were going to go over. So thank you very much for giving me your extra time. And I hope that you've got a lot of benefit out of this as well. So no doubt I'll ask you back on a podcast very soon. All right. So thank you very much, Mada. All right.
All the best, Jay. Yeah.